Sup, Night Owls! In this episode, we are going to make foam core cubes. Foam core cubes are somewhat easy to make, but they take a little bit of skill and practice. This is some of the foundational work that you need to do with foam core to get better at it and to practice with it. In this, we're going to be practicing how to cut foam core, also going to practice how to make beveled edges with foam core, and then how to glue and construct with foam core. So if you've never constructed with foam core before, this is your episode.
To get this project kicked off, you're going to need some foam core, a metal ruler, a really sharp knife, a pencil, and some art or painter's tape. You'll also need some glue. So we're going to make 2-inch cubes. Taking my ruler, I'm going to measure out every 2 inches along the width and the length of the foam core. Next, we'll take the ruler and line up the marks to make straight lines across the width and the length of the foam core. It's really important that you measure out and get this pretty precise. If you have curvy lines, then it makes it harder to make cubes. Next, we're going to take our Xacto knife and we're going to start cutting out strips from the foam core. It doesn't matter if you cut long strips or wide strips, just as long as you cut them into strips, it'll make your life a lot easier. It's pretty important that you use a very sharp knife while cutting your foam core. I mean, come on, who wants to cut with a dull knife? Once you've cut out all the strips, you can then start working on cutting out your individual squares. Now, there isn't anything too fancy about this process. You do want to make sure that you are cutting straight lines. Nobody wants wavy lines in their cubes. And you want to make sure that you're cutting straight up and down. Otherwise, you'll start beveling your edges, and you don't want to bevel them just yet. Speaking of beveling edges, beveling edges isn't the easiest thing to do. There is a bit of a science and an art to it, and I'll explain the process of beveling a little bit later. As you can see, the bevels are created. We have these nice 45-degree angles on the squares, and now we can do a test fit to make sure the squares are lining up properly. So you can see how these squares are fitting together and how the beveled edges allows everything to line up with each other nicely. Next, I am going to grab some tape and I'm going to line up my cubes on the tape. I'm using the ruler as a guide to keep the cube straight, and then I'm using the tape to just make sure the cubes all stay in place. And once I get all 4 cubes in place, we can do a test fit and just make sure everything looks okay. Hey cube, you're looking okay. Oh yeah. Great, everything is fitting and we're looking good. We could start our glue up. I'm using 527 multi-purpose glue, but you don't have to use this glue. You could use Elmer's glue, you could use a glue gun, or other multi-purpose glue that you have in your house. I personally like 527 because it is clear and it has a relatively fast dry time. Not obnoxiously fast like a glue gun, but it cures in about a half an hour. Alright, we have glue in all of our seams, and now it's time to wrap it up and join all the edges together. And I'm going to use a little bit of tape to hold everything in place. So you might notice the cube is a little flimsy at this point. You could push it from side to side. Once you get the next piece in, it'll help stabilize it. Or you could sandwich the cube between 2 heavy objects and let it dry straight. For the sake of time, I'm just going to glue in the next pieces, and that will force the object straight. Alright, so you can see now how the sidewalls are a little off, and with just a little bit of adjustment, I can get my next square in and center everything. From there, I'm going to add a little bit of tape just to stabilize the sidewalls and to get the sides nice and flush to each other. So when they dry up, you won't have as many gaps. And then you can start gluing up the last open space, put in your final square, and you are just about done. All we need now is a little more tape to stabilize and pull the sidewalls together. And it's starting to look really good. We have a cube. Once everything dries, you can start pulling off that tape and see how everything reveals. And again, if you're using that 527, you don't have to wait a full day like you would with Elmer's glue or some white or wood glue. This cures relatively quickly, and I was able to let this sit for about a half an hour and then start pulling off the tape. I might have gotten a little tape happy. It happens from time to time. Tape is so much fun. Once everything is untaped, we could examine the cube and find our errors. In this case, you could see one of my bevels wasn't exactly great and the cap sunk in a little bit. To fix this, I'm just going to take my blade and cut the excess overhang away to make things look a little more flush. Pro tip, make sure your thumbs are not close to that blade as it's super sharp. No, but seriously, I've nicked myself so many times with Xacto blades and it's no fun. Make sure your fingers are far away from that blade. Why settle with one box when we can make two more? Earlier, I talked about cutting bevels and how it's a bit of a science and an art at the same time. In the top left-hand corner, you could see me making bevel cuts. And the trick is to take your ruler and place it on your square about a 1/16 to an 1/8 of an inch away from the edge. From there, take your blade and rest the side of the blade against the ruler and then slide it across the edge of the square. What you're doing is using the ruler as a guide, and it will help create that 45-degree angle. And there you go, 3 giant cubes made. Hopefully you've tried this project on your own, and if you have and you completed it, give yourself a pat on the back. It's not exactly the easiest thing to do.
And that's it. That's how we make foam core cubes. Not too difficult. There's some areas that you want to pay attention to, like these aren't perfect. Let's see if I can get you to focus. So like you could see right in here, I have a little bit of glue coming out, which you would have to sand and clean up. Some of my edges are a little rough, stuff like that. However, as you start practicing and building more and more cubes, you're going to get better at this. And this is going to make your construction of other foam core objects that much easier, be it dioramas, more 3D shapes, masks like we have in the background there. So stuff like that becomes easier and faster and better to do. So thank you so much. Please subscribe. I hope you enjoyed this this tutorial, and I'll see you in the next video.